Frank, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Thank you. Looking forward.
Me too. It's great to, I always love talking internationally and getting different perspectives, different accents, different culture, the whole gambit. So why don't we start, best place to start is if you can briefly introduce yourself. Don't say everything because then I'll have nothing left to talk about, but just who you are, a little bit about where you're from, where you are now, family, things like that. And then we'll get into it. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I have to tell you, because you will never notice with my total absence of accent, but I'm French originally, long time ago. Yeah, I can also speak like this during the interview. It's clearer for you. But the thing is, I moved to Switzerland a long time ago, and I feel probably more Swiss than French these days, especially also because of the Swissness that is surrounding me. I've initially I was supposed to be an engineer. I somehow made this an appearance for the first 3 to 4 years, and I changed into more management positions, things which are related to non-technical things, if I could do this. And I worked mainly into telco, then a few other things. I'm very curious about everything, so I like to learn and develop and start again from zero. I like good things. Sometimes it could be an issue because it goes to cars, wine, watches, anything which is interesting to try and taste and understand, which is a bit refined. So that's about me as a person.
What about your family?
Anything else? Yeah, sorry.
What about family?
I got 2 kids, I think. Let me count. Yeah, 2 kids, and they are all bright and good looking, typical gene transmission, you know. One is unfortunately heading towards telco or IT positions, and the second one I can still save, but let's see if I can make this happen.
Super cool. I told my kids that since I got my CPA first with Deloitte, I said, you can be anything you want to be when you grow up, just don't be an accountant.
I cannot agree more to that. To all accountants, hi, I love you.
Exactly. So when you were a kid, did you have like an extraordinary imagination? Did you visualize things? And I guess before we delve deeper, what I'm trying to ask is, when did you discover your quote unquote your why?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I've always been telling myself stories, and up to a point where I started to write them. It was maybe when I was 15, 16. I even published a book. I'm going to give you the link. You can subscribe and this kind of things later. But I even published a book. I wrote 2 more that were never published, and a few 10 or 12 short stories. And it was for me the first time I need to create stuff. I need to tell stories. I need to give content to people. So that was the first medium, let's say. Then it went to video, and I'm now happy to be able to use 360 video, or VR as we might call it, which is even more powerful because you can even transport people into more worlds and more interesting places.
So that was like, so when you were a kid, you're obviously not thinking of VR, AR, not, but you were visualizing by doing stories and things like that. So
yeah. I was creating worlds in a way that were written, but of course, that's why the beauty of it, when you read something, is you form images in your head, and probably the images I was forming were different from the people who read me, but there was still something about creating characters, places, situations that were interesting and not existing in a way.
Yeah, super cool. Imagination is something that kind of, it seemed like it dissipated a little bit and then started coming back significantly in the last several years between VR, AR, with going to space again, etc. We're starting to really, envision, and imagine what could happen. Share with us a little bit about your journey, though. As you mentioned, you engaged in telecom, and then obviously you like watches and cars, and you were engaged in that industry, product development, etc. I'd love to hear what value you got out of that, which will lead to where you are now, but what value you got out of that, specifically also with respect to the customer experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought of it also when we had some exchanges previously. And I think two things are really striking when I look back at what I did, because I moved from different positions in bigger companies, but also I took 2 breaks in startups. That's my 3rd break, and I think it's going to be a final break. I don't intend to leave the startup or the small company well. 2 things. One is I've always been what is called now an entrepreneur, which was not called like this at the beginning, but anyway, I was saw a need, identified the solution, build the process, the team to make it work. And the second is probably related to customer, or let's say human centricity, which is why I enjoyed in particular building up the team of customer experience at Orange, which is now called Salt in Switzerland, simply because it's all based on what the user, what the human being is able to do with the product or not. And to opposite to, we throw technology at people and we just watch them fail using it. So it was really interesting, because you get into how could it be that if you give a product and a user manual to someone, he's not going to read the user manual? Why? Because we think he's going to read it, but it doesn't happen. Whereas if he has the user manual at the right page and the product in his hand, he's still going to fail because he's not going to understand the instructions. Why? And that's what, digging into that, you realize how people work, and you manage to make your products more customer-centric, let's say, friendly. And that's what I kept in mind also when I'm designing experiences now. It's all coming from what is the user going to do next, which is not what you think is going to be done.
It's interesting because it reminds me of a Steve Jobs a little bit, and I can't quote him, but he always thought that.
Was it like this?
Computer could be
You want me?
in
I can change and put a black T-shirt, so I'm going to come back.
All right, you got a minute. No, but he would say, what's the use of inventing the smartest, biggest computer in the world if people can't use it? And he seemed to be visionary in the sense of knowing what people would use and what they would enjoy and what they would experience, etc., including getting the Macs into schools so they would use it.
Yeah. And surprisingly, I was an Apple fan. It's getting wrong these days because probably they hired Microsoft people in the company. But anyway, I was really much into that, saying you don't need to push buttons and technology at people. You need to push something at them that they can simply understand and use and enjoy. As simple as that. And this is what I like in this attitude. Now, it's not always easy because you sometimes don't know what they're going to enjoy and understand. So you need to research that first. That's the main thing. But there is one key saying which I'm using for customers or people, also for myself. If you are struggling to take a bloody ticket from a bloody vending machine, you are not stupid. It's the guy who put the interface together who is stupid and is not knowing his job. The machine is the thing which is the issue. The human is never the issue. That's a human being. So keep this in mind next time you're struggling to get a ticket.
Is that why people kick the vending machine?
Yeah. They think it's going to cooperate, but it does not. Yeah, that might be.
Yeah, no, it is a great point though, and it somehow relates to one of my favorite quotes of all time. Maya Angelou used to say, people will not exactly paraphrasing, but people will mostly forget what you've said. They will forget what you've done, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that is customer experience to some degree, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's also part of things we should keep in mind when designing how to welcome people, how to get them into something, an experience, a game. So that's part of it, yeah.
Yeah, so, when we founded Fifth Element, it was on the basis that leaders and their businesses can do much better when they're doing good. So tying that in, tell us about your world now. And I know I in communication with you, I noticed specifically how you called yourself, parenthesis, real manager, parenthesis, virtual reality. But tell us about your world now, where you're bringing virtual reality to customers for their business also, and that includes recruitment and team building, as well as for sports and entertainment and healthcare, even AR tattoos, which I know you showed me, which was amazing. Tell us about your world now and what's happening with that.
Well, there's something which happens normally at some point when I'm giving a conference or a workshop. Somebody is going to tell me, but with your technology, you're going to, make people feel more isolated, because we are not going to see each other again. And then I ask them, I actually sometimes tell them, Did you get more or less time with your parents who are 600 kilometers away? For you in the US, must be like 5,000 kilometers away. Did you spend more or less time after Facebook joined your accounts together? And the answer systematically is, yeah, it's true. Actually, we chatted more and we even talked more. Sometimes we had video calls, and so we didn't have them before. Well, then there we go. There's your answer. You're not going to be able to travel more to see them. So use the means. Typically, a video call is going to be replaced with a VR session where you're going to be sitting next to each other, next to the river where you always went when you were a kid. And you're going to have good times that you will never have had if you had not the right technology to do this. And then start thinking, saying, maybe you're right. Yeah. So that's one thing. Technology should not be, and is not, as I see it at the moment, going to separate, isolate people. It brings benefits in terms of how do you make a kind of better, more sustainable world. Typically, if you want to have a conference with people and you use their avatars, instead of flying them to a place, well, then you save, the flights and anything which is connected to that, not mentioning even the time of their lives, because it's not only about the environment, it's also about you as a human being, not spending 12 hours in a flight where you can spend it with your family. And it's also part of the balance, how people feel happy. If they feel better, then they're stronger at work as well. So you should not do that.
You made me think of my almost now 95-year-old aunt who her actual video is broken right now, and how much she misses. It's not enough to just talk on the telephone, and she's 95.
Right.
It was way before all this happened, but how she's picked up, I really need that video, and I can't even imagine how she would be, to your example, if we met at the river or wherever we used to go to, and how that would impact her well-being even at 95 years old, because I can see the difference in her attitude and energy just by not having the video for a week or two.
Yeah. It's I got a video. I should send it to you at some point. I recorded this. We had an operation with animation in a commercial center in a remote part of Switzerland, and I was there, and I could see there was a whole family waiting in turn to do an experience. And there was the daughter, young kid, 12 years old, the mother, and the grandmother. And the grandmother was maybe 75, 80 years old. And of course, the kid wanted to try. The mom didn't want to try. I'm never playing video games. No, it's not a video game anyway. And the grandmother, when asked, she just laughed, saying, well, why would I even consider using this? It doesn't make sense for my age. And then what happened is the daughter played, the mother wanted to try, she loved it. And then the grandmother went in, and then she had the sentence. She had this very educated voice, like typical old school education. And she said something like, "C'est magnifique, monsieur." And I have this in video. It's touching, really, the way she was looking around and being so happy. She was happy. And we are conducting a pilot with a retirement house here in next to the Montreux Lake, which is also called Geneva Lake and Lake Léman, depending on where you live. And we can see the benefit for people as well. We get written feedback saying, I felt I was not here, and I can go to the Matterhorn, to the mountains, I can go to the lake, whereas I'm not actually. And what I intend to do is introduce step-by-step teleportation there, so that you can teleport to your grandkids that are just too far away, or your newborn grandkid that you never saw, just by teleportation. It was a joke 4 or 5 years ago. In a year, it won't be anymore, because you don't know if you're aware that headsets start face and eye tracking. So you can have your avatar having a body language. You can see the full body and also seeing exactly what your face is doing. With a quality which is real time, amazing. So you can imagine you can reproduce your own avatar, you and me, we could be together as avatars, but difficult to say if it's a real person or not, maybe in a couple of years. Anywhere, it could be on the moon, it could be in a shed where you grew up, etc., etc. That's teleportation. Add to this haptic feedback and wind and smells. There we go. So you got the same type of presence, even though you can't physically be there. And I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, to me, it's amazing, and it's amazing what the future holds. We talked a little bit about this, but 2 areas I'm super interested in is healthcare and even sports, and how I've seen pro athletes, even I used to be taught, how do I visualize before I go to play the
Mhm.
game? I've already been there. Now
Yeah.
they're using AR and VR to prepare themselves for games. They're using it to get over injuries faster. With respect to the brain and how it feels, and for hospice and elderly to be able to travel to places that they've already been or haven't been yet, how it literally does impact their mental and physical
Yeah.
feelings, which then certainly goes to family and then it goes to community. It is a trickle down if people feel
Yeah.
better in general. So how do you see how do you see achieving sustainability to scale again where, and this is what I'm talking about, where the greatest impact in the world comes from when you can make something economically viable,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
you said before, easy to implement, and that's creating positive impact.
Yeah. There are two. Sorry, there are two challenges to this. One is what I call well, call it accessibility in a way. It's not because you got a headset in your. How many people got a headset, never used it because they don't know what to do with it. They have no idea how to configure it, and the grandson that knows is not coming to visit them. So there's no point. That's one. And I'm actually working on a project now, which is top secret. So I have to kill you and all the viewers after I say that. But it's
Right.
you have to give me
Let
all the
everybody
names.
watch the video before you kill them.
Yeah, I mean, fine. I'm fine with that. But I just want the addresses and physical addresses. Anyway, and this thing is instead of 11 steps, because I counted them, we have tested a lot of headsets and configuration. 11 steps to get to the point where you can do, for instance, this chat in VR thingy. We want something that just has one big on-off button because sometimes design is there but not usability. And when you put it on and put it on your head, in maximum 30 seconds, you are connected to the person or you're doing whatever you should be doing with this particular headset. And I don't think people who are investing like Meta does 10 billion a year in metaverse are even thinking of the last bit of the chain, which is us. We need to be able to use the product. If we don't, there's no point investing 10 billion. Nobody's going to use it.
right.
So I'm honestly going to put myself in charge of this bit. It's going to be interesting to see how we succeed. But we're starting now the beta product, and then we're going to raise funds. So I'll give you the email address, send millions to the email. I gave you the email address for the funding. But I think this bit here, if we don't get it right, you can forget about spreading this wonder of technology to 95% of the population, and we don't want that. We want everyone to be able to use it. So that's part of the challenge. That's one. The second is, you mentioned it, is price, cost of mainly headsets, sometimes software. And this, luckily, is not anymore a big issue. When I see the prices of the headsets now, autonomous headsets going down to $500, compare this to the price of a phone, of an iPad. I don't think you can see people with no means having a newest iPhone 12. I don't think price is an issue anymore, thanks to people like Meta sponsoring their own headsets. But I think this one, I don't see it as a bigger issue. It's more about, do we want that, and do we make it affordable for people, affordable in the sense of usability for them to use the application?
Yeah, I only see it happening 100,000,000% for all the reasons we talked about, and especially even leaders of companies who are looking to attract talent to their company. They've realized, that's why we call this leaders who care. They realize that
Yeah.
they care about the well-being of their talent. When I mean well-being, I mean their financial, physical, and mental well-being. The talent won't go there. Talent wants to be at a place where they make money and they have purpose and they feel good at the same time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I know companies that have in basic stages right now have VR just to show a potential candidate they're trying to hire what they're going to feel like in the office. And so,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's the basic part of
We
it.
just did that. Actually, that's funny you mentioned that. We just did this. Was it 2 years ago? We are in a week of doing this with a company here for the apprentices, and these guys, they are what they call it Z generation anyway. But I mean, for us, we're a bit older, right? You're like 32, I'm like 31. So of course we cannot understand how these people were 16, 21 function, right? That's the thing. But it works even better for them than it works for us in terms of attractivity, fun. They want to have fun. So, that's a good way to have fun, not read a manual or read a PDF, but just be immersed and be introduced to the company by the CEO who welcomes you in VR and drives you around in a remote location. Why not? And talks about dress code and culture and whatever. It's much more interesting that, you got this PDF to read, which is 256 pages to start with. And then in half a day, come and see me in my office. That doesn't work for them at all. They don't want it.
The former president of GM, I remember she transformed there was like 30 pages on dress in the manual, whatever, and she transformed it to 1 second sentence which said dress appropriately. That's all.
Right.
She said.
That's quite good.
To your point, I have some global clients who, they, with conferencing and Zoom and things like that, they get people together more. But that's just the beginning of, like you're saying, really being together and really being able to, be a community, if you will, and be engaged, because you can't all travel to be with each other all the time.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The opportunity there is immense, and how well it ties into the whole remote working scenario, which is only going to grow. And a person, again, working with clients on attracting the best people, if you can have a bigger pool to choose great people who don't have to be in your office and be an hour away from your office, but the best person
right.
in
yeah.
London or Asia or somewhere and can work effectively with you that remotely, what a huge advantage for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the only benefit of this COVID crisis we had is companies had to let go from 100% in the office, under control, working 12 hours a day, sitting, because you're not working 12 hours, but sitting at your office 12 hours a day. This is going down now. It's a good thing. As I said, I'm really convinced that if you want to be efficient, you have to be happy in your personal life, and you don't have to have strains on commuting, stress to get on time, etc., etc. And this remote attitude kind of relieves it. However, again, it's because I'm a VR preacher, but compared to a Zoom session, which is already a plus, right? Compared to phone, if we make VR a more commonly used tool, like it's starting not to happen, Meta being pushing, but Accenture has joined in. Microsoft is behind this as well now. You can see it's coming through the enterprises. If we make this happen, it's also a way to stay more physically connected, because you see body languages, you see avatars, you can have 3D, 2D objects, presentation, you can fly to places you want to. You can even co-create together, which is amazing when you think of it. And this is something which I'm really looking forward to. That's going to be a real shift. Especially we are a bit late here, and it's going to be my 30 seconds of non-politically correct, but I think in Switzerland, we are bloody late with the technology compared to the US. And not the technology itself, the same devices, but the adoption of it is too slow. So anybody Swiss having influence on anything, listen to me, get this thing to the people, get sponsored programs, make sure companies don't stay a year and a half behind compared to the US and France, and I'm not mentioning Asia, it's even worse. So we need this to happen now. Very important.
Well, I forgot to give a shout out to Anna Maria Mescurti for introducing us. And she's one of the ones making stuff happen.
Right, that's true.
I do love, before I ask you a final question here, it's a great topic and something we should keep talking about, obviously, is I love the way you combine London, Switzerland, and everything by saying, the bloody meeting, this and that, and you get to all, and the French accent all together, it's perfect. So.
Wait, I'm going to take some fondue out of the cupboard, and then we are the three countries together. Perfect.
All right.
But I agree. I'm swearing in British. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I'm sure everybody. The other good thing about COVID, before I ask you a final question, is that we realize we can be serious about what we're talking about, but we don't have to take ourselves so seriously.
Right. Yeah, that's why that's why I told you about my own dress code when I'm in Zoom. So half is serious, the other half is not. That's a typical thing.
Yeah, it works for me too. So last question on this part, one client told me in 2021, they described 2020 to me as the year that flew by slowly. And I love that line. And then 2021 and 22 have just flown by. like
Yeah.
unbelievable, like one big blur almost. So with that in mind, what are you most grateful for based on what happened? And what are you most hopeful for next year?
Um, it's exactly what we discussed before. I think one thing which I did not expect is this shift towards really human-centric things, such as it's okay to be relieved from commuting and be happier at work. This is a big change that I didn't expect. I didn't see it coming. And I'm really looking for more. We're a bit pushed by the younger generation who say, no, I don't need your money and your work. I just want to have my things and my life and whatever. Okay, fine. So, and companies are panicking. They're saying, oh my God, how are we going to keep these guys to work? It's a good question. And the second is more on the technology front. I can see that it's based on what happened. I can see people are more interested now into finding solutions, and they consider when we knock at the doors, they're not rejecting us. They're just curious to tell us about what you're doing, because they learn that in a couple of weeks, basically you have to reinvent your business. And if you did not open enough to other technologies, you're basically dead. So now the lesson learned, they are more into us. Tell us what we could use in case something goes wrong. And that is something which we see a lot. And I'm grateful, of course, business-wise about this.
So you're hopeful for 2023 being a good year?
Yeah, actually 2022 is already a good year. We've been surfing on the metaverse buzzword a lot because we're doing the same more or less as 3 years ago, but people like us now because we are metaverse people. Before we were just weirdos. So that's a good thing. However, on top of that, because I was already talking about this type of things 2 years ago, saying you will see in 5 years, headsets will have face tracking and your avatar will talk like you. Bloody hell, I'm not quick enough. Yeah, I got this. I received my Quest Pro yesterday night. It does this. It has eye tracking and face tracking, which is incredible. It's a commonly public device that you can buy really as anyone can do. So it's not only that. I'm pretty sure that I have to invent quicker. Let's say in 6 months, you'll have cold and warm that you can feel in your body because of the headset. And in 2 years, you're going to be like Real Player One. You're going to be able to feel everything, pressure, wind, and anything.
Well, then, before I let you go, there's a young lady that just won a big prize. I can't remember what it was, but major prize, and she has a headphone that's not expensive that can detect ear infection.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The medical parts of what could happen too are immense.
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm grateful for you being a leader who really does care. So thank you for that, and hopeful for the impact you're going to make, even in Switzerland, no matter what, and around the world. So thank you so much for joining and sharing all that with us.
Well, thanks a lot for existing first, because it's a very, motivating thing to see that this organization exists and pushes things. I want to thank you also as a person for being yet an American, but still very interesting to talk to. So I'm really happy that we could. I'm going to make more friends. No, it was really a great pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.